There's a place on the map where you leave North America and step into Middle Earth. A fairy tale world from once upon a time. Here in the hills and hollows of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, brothers settle a blood feud. A father builds a bizarre nest, and a mother does the timeless job of teaching young to survive. Here in this enchanted world, a fire without smoke, and smoke without fire. The place of blue smoke, as the Cherokee called it, water vapor exhaled by countless trees. A constant shroud over the Great Smoky Mountains. Beneath this cloak, scientists believe 100,000 species of plants and animals may thrive, a staggering diversity of life. Small wonder the Smokies attract more visitors than any national park. But imagine seeing the park with fresh eyes, and every view a rare glimpse into a hidden world, just like this one. A black bear and her cubs. A typical litter of 3. For 5 months, she hasn't stirred. Even as their mother slumbered, the cubs nursed on a rich diet of super fatty milk. Over the winter, her own weight dropped up to 1/3. How she survived still stumps us. During hibernation, her heart rate fell to just 8 beats per minute, and somehow she turned much of her bodily waste into protein. In the coming months, she must fatten up on what the forest provides. The survival of the fragile cubs depends on their mother. Her survival depends on the Smokies. After weeks confined to a cubbyhole, new life makes its debut in the park. Black bears are born climbers. With strong claws, even a bear cub negotiates the trunk like a power lineman. Their debut draws attention. Our mom must stay alert. Coyotes will prey on the cubs. So will bobcats. At night, the treetops offer refuge from predators that can't climb. In daylight, on the ground, the cubs are vulnerable, so Mom won't let them wander. For the next 18 months, they'll shadow their mother, their instructor and protector, within a park that safeguards them from another enemy, man. Male cubs will grow up to be loners, like their long-gone father. Females will rear their own offspring. For now, 3 wide-eyed toddlers enter a world made for them, if they learn to make the most of it. Lesson 1 is survival. Mom alone must teach them And what better way to explore these enchanted forests than through young bears' eyes? Yet the very landscape conspires to keep its secrets. Trees cover 95% of the park. With the spring thaw, the park is about to bloom anew. Spring ephemerals are named for their 15 minutes in the spotlight before the canopy fills out and starves them of sunshine. In their brief span, their nutrients will help sustain our bear mom. As the Smokies blossom into a vast salad bar, Mom will find enough to live on, if not grow on. If geysers define Yellowstone, greenery defines the Smokies, with more than 5,000 species of plants and trees. Springtime not only rouses the hibernators, it brings the very landscape to life. And back come the picnickers, the pollinators, every April, the park plays host to a 5-day festival, the Spring Wildflower Pilgrimage. It attracts thousands of nature lovers, eager to glimpse the park's floral bonanza at its peak. Of course, even nature lovers can be distracted here when young hearts fall under the spell of springtime in the Smokies. Once the sun gives way to shade, the wildflowers lose their colors and drop their seeds. Each seed holds a little white bundle of fat. For ants, that fat is a bounty of nourishment. Home goes the harvest to feed the young. In the process, ants do the plants a favor by dispersing the seeds. In the Smokies, 1 in 3 spring flowers is spread with the help of ants. A familiar call from as far off as a mile. A creature that defines America, once hunted and evicted to the brink of extinction. Now roaring back thanks to parks like the Smokies. A proud American. The wild turkey. Like the park's bears, they're omnivores. Grass or grain, berries or bugs, even small reptiles. Bring it on. This tom sports up to 6,000 feathers worth of ostentation. In the face of such impressive wooing, who can think about food? Yet the hens ignore him. There's a pecking order to mating, and soon he'll have to fight younger males for his place. Though it's spring in the Smokies, not all fancies turn to thoughts of mating. Our mom mates only when she no longer has cubs, or every 2 years. The vulnerable cubs now weigh barely 6 pounds. For more than half of their first year, their main source of nourishment is milk, with a fat content 5 times higher than a cow's. When the park was created in 1934, only 100 black bears survived here. Today, 15 times as many. More black bears per square mile than anywhere in the country. The turkey's safety in Great Smoky Mountains National Park depends partly on camouflage, blending in. Like the whippoorwill. Can you see it? Try now. Bears are mostly vegetarians, but our mom won't turn up her nose at protein. But in this park where flora blends with fauna, the trick is finding it. The whippoorwill's nest is well hidden, and the cubs are barking up the wrong tree. It's actually not a real nest. She just lays her eggs right on the ground. Camouflage is why the whippoorwill is heard more than seen. More than 1,500 types of flowering plants thrive in the Smokies, the most of any North American park. The pink lady's slipper produces no nectar to reward pollinators, yet it still attracts them. The trick? Bumblebees are drawn to any pink flower. Lured into the slipper by the false promise of nectar, the bumblebee can't exit the way it entered. As it wriggles out, it coats itself with pollen to smear on the next lady's slipper. Pollen 1, pollinator 0. More species of trees flourish in the Smokies than in all of Northern Europe combined. Altitude brings a whole new cast of characters. On exposed summits, fragile wildflowers yield to sturdy shrubs, like mountain laurel, which blooms in early summer. Beautiful, but toxic. Honey made from its flowers can kill you. But mountain laurel isn't the only poisonous thing up here. In Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a male timber rattlesnake emerges from his winter den. A big female has already claimed this spot for a vital task, a daily sunbath. Like other cold-blooded creatures, rattlers rely on their environment to warm their bodies. The male has shed his skin. Unlike human skin, snake skin doesn't grow as the snake does, so he has to slough the tight old layer. The friction of rubbing against a rock aids the tedious process. Each time a rattler loses its skin, it adds a new segment to its rattles. It will grow and shed its whole life though less often with age. The old skin is useless to its owner, but in the Smokies, as always in nature, nothing goes to waste. Put trash at the curb, and someone will find a use for it. Especially now. Springtime in the Smokies is construction season. The nest of a pair of great crested flycatchers and prime building material. Now comes one of those minor clashes that occur daily in the park. Conflicting agendas. One family's search for food interrupts another's search for shelter. The birds wait for the bears to pass. Meanwhile, the cubs learn another lesson. A rotting log yields protein-rich grubs. But not until the Smokies set out the lavish spread of summer will she fatten up again, packing on the pounds for another winter's fast. Finally, the interruption moves on, and they can get on with construction. They'll weave it into the walls of the nest. Snakeskin doubles as a home protection device. The scent deters predators that prey on their eggs. Sun-loving wildflowers root in the cracked rocks, like the fire pink. The name pink refers to the notches, or pinks, at the tip of its petals, not to the color of this fiery red blossom. That color and the arrangement of the pollen-covered stamens is designed for one pollinator, the Ruby-Throated Hummingbird. He's a star of the park and a masterful flyer. With his flexible shoulders, he can move his wings in a figure-8 pattern more than 60 times a second. That's how hummingbirds hover, a skill unmatched by any other bird. Flying like that burns a lot of energy. This time of year, the female ruby throat needs even more carbs. Like our mother bear, she has young to feed. Hummingbirds usually lay 2 eggs. The other chick is in there somewhere. For perspective, a hummingbird's nest is the size of a thimble, befitting the park's smallest bird. It's made of lichen and wool and stitched together with elastic spider's silk, so it stretches to accommodate her growing chicks, fed frequently on nectar and insects. Our bear cubs dine well too, still growing on their diet of mother's milk. The cubs can't handle adult fare yet, but they're starting to acquire a taste for it. Fruit, a staple of mom's diet, has yet to ripen, but the ample supply of young leaves sustains her. Her daily foraging takes her across some of the 2,000+ miles of streams that crisscross the park. How does a toddler fare when it plunges into the deep end? Turns out, black bears are good swimmers at any age. Right where the bears passed, a clever trap is about to be sprung. What looks like a minnow is actually a fleshy mantle growing from a wavy rayed lamp mussel, a cagey creature that uses its appendage to attract passing fish, especially black bass. It's all part of the lamp mussel's hidden agenda. The scheme? Release a jillion larvae for the bass to carry upstream. The larvae are parasitic. They'll cling to the bass's gills and draw nutrients from its blood as they develop into tiny lamp mussels. Then they'll abandon their host and colonize another part of the stream. Works every time, suckers. The Smokies waterways lure every kind of life, human included. Laurel Falls is a hot spot for photo ops. Seems like every one of the park's 9 million annual visitors wants to have their picture taken right here. Along the valley of the Little River, more of the night shift is stirring. Their fireworks, you have to see to believe. In early summer, swarms of visitors converge on Elkmont in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. They're here to see something sensational.
Sasquatch is out there. He's trying to get your picture. He has a camera with a flash.
No, not Sasquatch.
Folks, if I get everyone to gather around the table, please.
But what they'll witness will be just as magical. This is the time of year when the fireflies come out. The Smokies harbor 19 species of firefly, an exceptional number for a place outside the tropics. One unique species puts on a show that gives the Smokies their fire. Males use their built-in lanterns to lure mates. Showtime. The headliners of the light show are synchronous fireflies. Flashing in unison ensures females notice them. Mating season lasts just 2 weeks. Adulthood, just 3. Then they die. Talk about a flash in the pan. It's called bioluminescence, living light. And there's more of this cold fire here. Bitter oyster mushrooms, thriving on rotting wood. Why they glow remains a smoky mystery. Summer nights in the Smokies bring out other life that few ever see. The hellbender. A misnomer for such a gentle disposition. Once again, in these mountains, evolution took a sharp turn. Although hellbenders have lungs, they mainly breathe through their skin, which is well supplied with oxygen-rich blood. In all, more than 30 species of salamander inhabit the park, with the hellbender the biggest. With a greater variety of these amphibians than any place else, Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the salamander capital of the world. A superlative appreciated by our bear mom. Like all black bears, she's an omnivore. The trick about salamanders is finding them. With their flat builds, they easily squeeze under rocks. Another lesson for the youngsters: some species of salamander are highly toxic. Food poisoning for mom could be fatal to the whole family. Somehow, bears know which ones to avoid. A stone's throw away, an industrious resident of Great Smoky Mountains National Park is hard at work. The River Chub. With the breeding season on, the male chub sprouts knobs on his face and his head swells. The chub version of flowers and chocolate. Special pads on his lips let him use his mouth like a forklift. He's building a nest from hundreds of pebbles. A female chub can lay her eggs in the safety of the crannies, beyond the reach of predators, amid running water rich in oxygen. The chub is a common little minnow, but nest building on this scope is rare, at least among fish. Of course, others notice the chub version of a McMansion: squatters. Like the fairytale Little Red Hen, the chub asks, "Who will help me build this nest?" "Not I," say the freeloaders. It's a welfare state run amok. Tennessee shiners, war paint shiners, saffron shiners, more than 24 species of minnow lay their eggs in nests they didn't build. This time of year, their colors brighten as a signal to other males to band together, like teenage boys cruising for girls. They swarm from nest to mate and to exploit chub construction. And chub welcome them. The more eggs in the nest, the more likely the chub's own eggs will survive predators. As if on cue, they flood the nest with eggs and sperm. And the orgy ends. Spring finally flows into summer. The climate is almost tropical now. With the change of seasons, another orgy is about to begin. In Great Smoky Mountains National Park, our bear family is in hog heaven. Summer is when bears pig out. And in summer, humidity plus elevation equals precipitation. The Smokies average up to 85 inches of rain a year, more than almost anywhere in the U.S., and as much as a tropical rainforest. Rain or shine, our bears are in their element, especially on a black cherry tree groaning with fruit. The cubs have stopped nursing. From the baby food of insect larvae, they've graduated to the solid food of fruit, and more fruit. Dining here is tricky. Once you pick the main branches clean, how do you get to the thin branches farther out without breaking your neck? Like the cubs, watch and learn. Now, she can enjoy the fruits of her labor from the safety of her perch, brandished as easily as a lollipop. Fruit is more than a treat, it's a lifesaver. Like the proverbial ant that labors all summer, they're constantly building reserves of fat, vital for surviving next winter, and vital for breeding. A well-fed bear has better chances to give birth. Except for insects, a hummingbird in flight has the highest metabolism of any creature. But to save energy, it can slow it down at night or when food is scarce. Or even enter a kind of hibernation like our bears and slow its heartbeat 15 times below normal. Miserable? Not a chance. A thick, coarse layer of outer fur repels rain, while soft, dense underfur keeps her snug and warm. From nowhere, an intruder appears, a teenager newly separated from its own mom. Black bears are loners, except young families, of course. They tend to forage alone, but they'll tolerate other bears with enough food to go around. So, is there enough to go around? Guess not. Time for our family to move on, anyway. They've gorged on the first crop of cherries. But they'll remember this lunch spot and return in a week or two for the next ripe batch. Like black bears, white-tailed deer are another Great Smoky success story. Once decimated by hunting, now thriving. Delicately, they manage to harvest only the ripe, dark blackberries. Grass, leaves, twigs, flowers. A Great Smokies buffet. Some flowers are put to use by everyone. The Cherokee used bee balm as a medicinal herb and brewed its leaves for tea. European settlers followed their lead. Those scarlet flowers brim with nectar, and like the fire pink, they're designed to favor a particular pollinator. In midsummer, he treks up from the valleys to feast here. The ruby-throated hummingbird is mad about bee balm, whether in garden or glade. He's an impressive grazer, weighing in at barely 1/10 of an ounce, with wings beating 50 times a second as he flits from blossom to blossom. A funny thing about hummingbirds, they're antisocial. Bird or butterfly, hummingbirds will chase off trespassers. Like our bear mom, he's storing energy, in his case, for the trek to his winter home in Central America, including 500 miles over the Gulf of Mexico, non-stop. In the park, the endless journey of time has laid the groundwork for an eye blink of splendor. The Great Smoky Mountains are some of the oldest peaks on the planet. Since they rose up about 250 million years ago, wind and weather have worn them down to create a rich bed of soil. From that soil burst beauties like the Turk's cap lily, just as bumblebees can't resist the color pink, the spice bush swallowtail makes a beeline for the color orange. Our bear family returns to its lunchtime hangout for another helping of black cherries. Like any self-respecting mammal, it enjoys nothing better after a midday feast than a siesta. In the Smokies, the black bear enjoys safety from its worst enemy, bad PR. Black bears are curious yet shy, intelligent yet skittish. The fierce black bear of myth, nearly legend. Only one person is ever recorded to have been killed by a black bear defending her cubs in the Great Smoky Mountains. The tree takes a beating from its patron, but it also benefits. Evidence of the bear's passing. Filled with cherry pits, the tree's seeds. The deer mouse will prove an adage, from small deeds come great feats. Daily, she leaves her young to browse for nuts and seeds. What she doesn't eat, she'll bury for next winter. Since she's apt to forget where she buried them, some seeds will become trees. The Great Smokies at their most magical. Autumn. Leaves are already turning when one of the last wildflowers finally blossoms. The heart-leaved aster, a final source of nectar. By mid-autumn, most days dawn with a coating of frost. The combination of humid air and cold nights leaves the highest peaks, including Clingmans Dome, looking like winter has already barged in. Below, the Smokies still blaze with color. With more than 100 kinds of trees, nature colors the park with a big box of crayons. The red pigment appears early on maples and sweet gums, but it's not just for show. It's produced by a chemical that protects the aging leaves so they can hang on a little longer. beeches and hickory finally show their true color, yellow. Uncovered as the leaves begin to break down and the chlorophyll that tinted them green fades away. As the weather turns, plants and animals alike respond to the same cues. Turkey vultures gather on their migration south. But in the pageant of the Smokies, a few performers have yet to debut. Witch hazel waits until fall to flower, after shedding its leaves. Its flowers pale next to the blooms of summer, but its fruit is a real firecracker. The walls of the seed capsule flex, then split open. Now the seeds are primed for their big exit. They fly as far as 20 feet. So the witch hazel spreads itself just fine. Thank you. The Smokies also yield a bumper crop of nuts. Our bear mom trades summer carbs for autumn fats. Her last chance to pack on pounds for the winter. Through sheer jaw power, she can crack nuts as hard as hickories. On a diet of acorns, she may gain up to 5 pounds a day, roaming from grove to grove in what park biologists call the fall shuffle. Her cubs have stopped nursing, so she holds on to even more of her weight. Any day now, the whole family will retire to a cozy den for their long winter's nap. But the biggest star in the park has yet to walk on stage. In Great Smoky Mountains National Park, you can find yourself in a picture out of a fairy tale. But these pictures actually come to life. Around the next bend waits a ghost from yesteryear. For the first time in 150 years, elk roam the Smokies. The native eastern elk are long gone, but in 2001, Manitoban elk were introduced to the park, and they're thriving. The rutting call. The bull who wins gets breeding rights. And we have a challenger. Like a turkey bout, antler wrestling can turn nasty. But this battle is bloodless. The lusty winner and the prize. Fall is also the season when wild turkeys start to fight. Once more, the meadow becomes an arena as males vie for breeding rights. The call to battle. face-off between brothers to see who's stronger. If neither backs down, this'll get ugly. Besides beaks, males deploy a turkey stiletto, a spur on the back leg up to 2 inches long. The loser. To the victor belong the you-know-whats. The year's coming to an end. The hummingbirds have flown. The elk have mated. The bears have denned. Soon a mantle of snow will blanket the park, and the surge of tourists will shrivel like an autumn leaf. That's when you notice that in the Great Smokies, time not only freezes, it turns back. To build the park meant assembling a vast patchwork of land, like the pieces of a mountain quilt. Buying out the humans and turning it over to the wildlife, turning tame land back into wilderness. The writer Thomas Wolfe, born in these very mountains, said, "You can't go home again." But like the elk, the Smokies prove him wrong. Yes, you can.